Welcome to the Retirement Compass radio show. I'm your host, Mike Bauer. I'm joined today by Tim Kulhanek, Zach Vancas, and Jeff Gove of Stonebridge Wealth System, serving families all across Nebraska with convenient offices in Omaha, Grand Island, Lincoln, and Kearney. And honestly, if you're looking for true direction, clarity, a clear path forward with your hard-earned nest egg, you are in the right place every single week. We sit down with the team, and I learn something every week, that's for sure. For anybody out there, I'm sure you'll learn something as well. And if you ever want to take that information, take that knowledge, and bring your specific questions to the team, you can always reach them directly at 866-295-5146 or go online to stonebridgeiwm.com. All right, let's start the segment off talking about magic. I'm feeling dad joke vibes there, guys. I'm sorry about this, but I'm sure that many times people think that there's a magic number they have to retire. Everybody's got some probably different number. It's got a certain amount of commas or zeros, but a lot of those numbers aren't based on reality and based on individual situations. So why do you guys think so many people misunderstand what retirement actually costs, Tim?
I think because if you listen to the gurus out there, they're always throwing out these different, rules of thumb. And the problem is they have to go an inch deep and a mile wide because they have to try to appeal to the largest pool of potential listeners that they possibly can. And a lot of them have millions of listeners, and a lot of them are great at certain things. Like you think of a Dave Ramsey, his superpower is helping people get out of debt. I was listening to his show last night, and this guy called in, and he was $3.5 million in debt. And Dave's like, "Well, what do you owe it on?" And after he said, "Oh my God," it was like $690,000 on his house. He has a triplex that he owed like $780,000 on, and the thing's worth like $800,000. But he also borrowed like $350,000 from a family member to put a down payment or something and do a bunch of upgrades. So it's just a disaster. And that's Dave's that's his. For some people, debt is sorcery. It's like, how do we deal with this? And Dave's just like, well, stop spending all of your money on frivolous, stupid things and pay off your debt, And so his baby steps are great for that. But then when it comes to, well, how much do I need to save? And maybe he says, save 15%. Then you start working on paying off your house and you get to eventually baby step 7. He told somebody else the show before that called in, and he said, how much money do you have? And he said, well, I got $2.5 million in my 401k. He's like, do you have any idea how much money you will never spend that money? Okay. You'll never spend that money. You can put that money in a good growth mutual fund. You just take $250,000 a year. You'll never encroach on the principal. And the guy's like, well, but what if the market goes down? Doesn't the market go down every so often? And then I could lose money. And Dave's like, it rarely ever goes down. If it does, it's hardly ever more than 5%. Well, that's just not true. In 2022, the market was down 18%. So that was the last year where we had, 2022 was the last year we had a negative number, because 23, 4, and 5 were 3 straight years of plus 15%. Now, it's true that the market has a good winning percentage. It's not like people try to say the market's a casino. It's not. It's a 70% win rate. The casino doesn't. The casino has a 95% win rate, but that means you have maybe it's probably 99%. You have 1% chance. So that's what makes it so difficult. And so people are always chasing this magic number. And there's kind of this cycle of poverty where maybe they listen to Dave and they pay off all their debt, and all of a sudden they feel like they have superpowers because they've achieved this amazing, really, it's a laudable type of thing to tighten the belt, get debt paid off, and I feel like you have financial freedom. But then to believe that I can take 10% per year or 8% per year, and that's a safe withdrawal rate. Math, unfortunately, doesn't really care about your opinions or your feelings. It's just math, no matter who you are. And math suggests that there's maybe a 30% chance that you could actually do that long term over rolling, 1 year periods. If you look at what the market actually does, you chop those up over a realistic 20 to 30 year time horizon for retirement. You're more likely to run out of money before you run out of life. So the bottom line is there isn't a one size fits all. Okay, everybody's situation is unique and needs to be customized to their specific financial condition, their goals. I got an email this morning from a client, and it is a pension payout analysis. So it's looking at, okay, if you take it as a lump sum, you're going to get $82,000. If you take it as a just life only payment, which means it goes so long as you're alive, but then if you die, it doesn't go to your spouse, your family, it's $570,000 or $570 a month. And so like now you start doing math and you say, okay, well, that's about an 8.8% payout rate. But what if I want to do joint life? And what does it go to? Maybe it goes to 7%, but I don't have any death benefit beyond my spouse and I. So if we both die at the same time, well, my point is when you're doing the math on these things, you realize that the amount of money you have is important, but where your income is coming from is equally important. How much is Social Security? When did you file? Are you married or single? Where does your money live? Does it live in the tax deferred bucket? Zach had a meeting this morning already, or last night it was, with a guy who didn't really think about the fact that, hey, most of your money lives in this tax deferred bucket, right? We have the 3 tax buckets: taxable, tax deferred, tax free. That's not all your money. The government has a claim on a portion of that, and they get to decide every single year how much their claim is and how much they're going to allow you to keep. So there's so much more that goes into the number than just listening to, a syndicated radio program.
All right, Zach, I've got a very important follow-up question. It's actually 2 questions. One, Tim just broke out a Dave Ramsey impression. Do you have any impressions, or does Tim have any other impressions that we should make sure?
He does Susie Orman really good.
I don't know. I can pull off a Dave Ramsey decently. Tim have other impressions? Yes. Any one Tim interacts with, he has an impression of decently. It's shocking. He'll recreate something like, this weekend, whatever happened, and this guy came up to me and just impression.
Got to be very good reading, books to kids then, because you do all the voices, I'm guessing. For anybody listening right now, we aren't talking about children's books or lullabies. We're talking about if your savings is truly aligned with your actual lifestyle goals. It's time for a reality check. You get to get a clear look at where you stand by taking the retirement reality check quiz at stonebridgeretirement.net. And, Zach, we started off talking about, a magic number. I'm sure that a misconception you hear all the time, because it's a nice round number, is if I save $1 million, I'm set for life. I'll ask you pointedly, is that true?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it's a goal for most people just because that 2 comma club seems like such a major milestone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to discount that it is, but the assumption that at $980,000 in savings, I'm bankrupt, but once I hit $1 million, we're good to go, just isn't the way to look at it. It's like Tim said, it's not the amount of money that you have in the bank. It's so many other things. It's what's your income? Where is it coming from? What's the withdrawal rate on that million? How much do you spend? How is it invested? And then what type of account is it in? Because if, let's say all you have is $1 million 401k, that's in the tax deferred bucket. So you don't have $1 million. You don't. The IRS has some of it. And how much of it do they have? Well, that depends. A few different things: your income, your age, are you married, and at what rate are you taking that out? And Congress gets to decide whatever they feel like that percentage is. They can just change it if they want. If they want more of it, they get more of it. So just assuming once I hit $1 million, I'm good, is just, you're leaving out so many important things of how much are you going to spend in retirement, right? Let's say you're spending, $6,000 a month. Okay, and your Social Security is maybe $3,000 a month. We're going to have to get the other $3,000. Okay, well, let's say we take it out of the million. That's $36,000 a year. That's, an okay withdrawal rate potentially. And there's other factors to look at. But in that scenario, maybe that does work out. But you're still leaving out, well, what about sequence of returns risk? What if the stock market takes a huge correction in the first year of your retirement and that million suddenly becomes 600 overnight? That changes the math completely. What if you have major medical expenses and you got to shell out, 6 figures? That changes the math significantly. There's just so much to look at than just, I hit $1 million and we're good.
A lot of those changes change the math significantly. A lot of those things, as you mentioned, Zach, impact the math. And the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, they know the math. You can give them a call right now. This is the math for our listeners. 866-295-5146. That's all the numbers you have to deal with today. 866-295-5146. Tim, how does somebody with a smaller portfolio actually have a better retirement than somebody with a much larger portfolio? I'm guessing that's a surprise to many to hear that can happen.
A lot of it comes down to priorities, behavior, psychology, right? A lot of it's above the shoulders, and where their money lives, or how they hold their wealth, and what form. And here's what I mean by that. What we're talking about is retirement satisfaction. And so, of course, it depends on where you live. It depends on what your goals are, your hobbies. If you want to be able to, be down in Florida in Naples and live in a fancy, condo and drive your tricked out golf cart all over the place, it might take a little bit more, just cost of living. It could, right? But some people are okay. They're very content. Hey, what do? We hop in the camper that we bought with cash years ago, and we just go camping every weekend, and during the wintertime, we just kind of hang out. Or maybe we have a place in a modular home type park down in Arizona. It's just not that expensive to do the things that we like to do. The other thing, I know we're running out of time, that I want to mention, though, is it depends on where your money lives, in the sense that studies show that retirees that hold their wealth in the form of guaranteed income will spend as much as double every single year in retirement versus those that don't. And so earlier I was talking about that pension payout situation where, hey, there's a lump sum or there's the monthly buyout. Well, because Dave Ramsey does tell people that they could take 8% because they're going to get 10 to 12% linear returns, the math, I said, disagrees with that. Wade Pfau, he's the math guy, so to speak, in finance. He's done the math on this. He's run the Monte Carlo simulations. He knows that there's 2/3 of the time you'll run out of money before you run out of life if you do that, because eventually they're going to have sequence of returns risks that Zach talked about. But when it comes to having guaranteed income, if you have a true guaranteed income, whether it's through a pension, delaying Social Security, or some type of annuity, whether it's a joint life annuity if you're married or a single life annuity if you're not, you tend to spend double, because you can put to rest that concern of, what if I run out of money? What if I run out of money before I run out of life? Those types of concerns go by the wayside, because you know that I'm holding my wealth in the form of guaranteed income and I can't outlive it. And so I'm more confident to spend money and not have to pull back and wonder, what if I end up, needing some sort of healthcare event later on? Those things kind of go by the wayside. So yes, it matters the amount of money you have, but what you do with it is equally as important. And that's what our team is designed to help you do, is to take that money that you do have and use it as effectively as you possibly can.
And that's how somebody with a small portfolio can maybe have a higher, retirement satisfaction than somebody with a much larger portfolio, is the plan that the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems can help you build. 866-295-5146, or visit them online at stonebridgeiwm.com.
A captain can navigate the open ocean. Calm days, stormy nights, they've seen it all. But when the ship reaches the harbor, everything changes. There's narrow passages, shifting tides, and hidden rocks. That's when the harbor master steps aboard, a specialist who knows how to bring you in safely. I'm Tim Kulhanek with Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and we're harbor masters for your retirement, guiding families through life's most important passage. Call the number below to schedule your complimentary retirement strategy session.
Thank you so much for listening to the Retirement Compass radio show. I'm Mike Bauer, alongside the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We have Jeff, Tim, and Zach in the house today. And Jeff, I want to start off with a serious, candid conversation about Social Security, because it's going away, right? It's disappearing. That's what everybody's saying. There's yelling fire in the theater. But before we get into any panic situations, Social Security really isn't completely disappearing, but the math is changing. It's getting harder to ignore. Let's start with the basics, Jeff. What exactly did the latest trustees report say, and why should anyone listening now really, really pay attention to this?
Well, I think, if you're heading towards retirement, everybody's paying attention to this, because it impacts a lot of people. It impacts about everyone. So you talked about the trust fund being depleted by 2032, and changes are going to have to be made. I think, and this is just my opinion, that they will make changes. So the people that are drawing Social Security won't be impacted, hopefully. That's just my opinion. From a political standpoint, cutting Social Security, not a good move from a political perspective. But again, that's just opinion. Something has to be done because the numbers don't work. What that also means is for our younger generations, you better be planning. You are going to have to take responsibility for your own retirement in the future, most likely. So that means you need to be saving at least 15% of your paycheck to make sure that you have the money put away to retire the way that you want to.
Jeff, you just mentioned something has to happen. So, Tim, what are the possible, fixes or avenues that, from a legislative perspective, that could actually change the math behind Social Security?
Well, Zach here wants to privatize the whole thing.
Yep.
He says throw it in the market. If that thing was in the S&P 500, okay. Now I'm just saying that was Zach, not me. Okay, so people who are really upset about that idea.
That's my conservative approach. You could just throw the whole thing in Bitcoin.
Okay.
Not specific advice.
Okay.
Zach's opinions do not represent the opinions of Stonebridge Wealth Systems.
Yes, past performance not indicative of future results for legal reasons. That's
Oh my
a joke.
gosh.
Loose cannon gambler Zach over here. Oh my goodness.
Okay. That was not. We're not serious about that, folks. Just to be clear. So let me pick up on a couple of things Jeff said, and then what could they do? So we've been talking about what they could do for a long time, but here's the actual numbers. This is directly from the trustees report, and I'll give you the short version. The trust fund, the OASI, Old Age Survivor Insurance Trust Fund, is now projected to pay full benefits through the fourth quarter of 2032, and then Medicare's hospital insurance, that's Part A, is funded through the second quarter of 2033. But both of those are 1 quarter earlier. So let's talk about what's causing that. What caused it to shrink faster than what they projected? Again, these things, it's a moving target, so it ebbs and flows. The long-range deficits widened too, driven by lower fertility assumption. Okay, Zach's married. There's no excuse for him to not have children at this point. Okay, when did you get married?
April.
Okay.
April. You said the quota for Stonebridge was 4.
January, there should be a baby. Okay, so we're doing our best. Jeff did his part. He's got 4 kids.
That's right.
I've got my 4th on the way. We're trying to save Social Security here at Stonebridge.
Eli
That's
has
what we're trying
4.
to do. Eli, yeah. So where are you? Okay. But lower fertility assumption, lower projected immigration, and the revenue effects of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Because of that additional senior deduction, it was kind of, it was, I don't want to say ingenious, but it was a unique approach to the impact of taxation on Social Security the government did with Big Beautiful Bill, because they knew they couldn't stop taxing Social Security because that wouldn't be able to be passed through reconciliation. So they said, well, we're just going to increase the standard deduction for seniors 65 plus temporarily from 2028 through, or 2025 through 2028. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's right. Now that could be extended. We don't know. But it wiped out a big chunk of the taxation of Social Security. And when a retiree receiving Social Security pays taxes on their Social Security, it's one of the 3-legged stool that helps fund Social Security. The primary funding mechanism for Social Security is our FICA tax, right? So that's like your payroll taxes, 7.65% for you, and then the same from your employer for a total of 15.3%. The other would be interest from the bonds within the trust fund. The trust fund, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's probably around $2 to $2.5 trillion and dwindling, right? Because they're cashing those in now. And then the third component is the taxes, the income taxes that people pay on their Social Security benefits they receive. That doesn't go to the general revenue bucket, if you will, for the federal government. It goes directly back into Social Security. Well, that got cut by Big Beautiful Bill. Plus, a couple years ago, if you remember the Social Security Fairness Act, do you guys remember that? That was the end of 24, I think it was. Was it into 24 or into 23? One of the two, where that changed things as well, because that made it so the windfall elimination provision, or WEP, and the GPO, the government pension offset, those went away. So like I've got a client who he never worked, he doesn't have 10 credits to have his own Social Security because he worked in what called non-covered work. He was for the fire department, and they have their own pension system where they don't pay into Social Security. So he wasn't eligible. So for the last few years, he's been getting 0 in Social Security benefits. When they passed the Social Security Fairness Act that said, hey, there shouldn't be an offset for government workers who had non-covered work that were getting, penalized in their perspective, those provisions went away completely. He's now getting 50% of what his wife is receiving, or would have received at full retirement age. Well, let's just say that was $2,800. Well, now he's getting $1,400. Well, before he was per month, so almost, $17,000 some a year, whereas before he was getting nothing. So my point is there's been lots of legislation that's actually caused this to go the opposite direction. It's accelerated the depletion. Now, there's a difference between depletion and insolvency. Depletion means I can't pay full benefits. Insolvency would be I can't pay you anything. So insolvency isn't on the radar right now. Depletion means that by 2032, they'd be able to pay like 78 cents on the dollar. So for every 1,000, you're going to get $780. What can they do? Just real quick off the top of my head, they could extend full retirement age. That's the most obvious one. Right now it's 67. They could move it to 68, 69, 70. They could expand delayed retirement credits. So right now, if you wait from full retirement age, every year you delay from full retirement age to age 70, you get an 8% delayed retirement credit. That's simple, not compound per year. So if you were 67 and you wait 3 years, that you get 124% of what you would have received at full retirement age. They could expand the delayed retirement credits out to like 74 to try to incentivize or entice people to delay even further before they start drawing benefits. Life expectancy in this country isn't expanding, really. It's kind of relatively flat. So they could use that as kind of a carrot to encourage people to wait to get benefits and then not actually get them. They could remove the cap. The Social Security earnings wage base right now goes up to like 180,000 or something. They could say, hey, we're going to tax all of those. They could add additional what we call bin points. So right now, the way they calculate your Social Security is they get your AMI, your average index monthly earnings, which is basically the 420 months of your highest earnings you've had over your lifetime, adjusted for inflation through age 60. And so it's highest 35 years of average earnings is what that comes out to. So they could come up with your AMI, and then instead of saying, hey, you get 90% of the first 1,000, and then you get 60% of the next however much, they could add additional bend points, so means test it more, so higher income earners get less and less. They could really get, unpleasant, and they could say, hey, look, if your income's over a certain threshold, you just don't get it, This is only for, it could become more of a welfare benefit, which is what the Penn-Wharton budget model sees happening at some point in time because they don't think that it's going to be sustainable long term. So lots that could happen. I take it all the way back to what Jeff said, though. Your responsibility is for your retirement. Okay, you are responsible for your own retirement. So don't wait and trust that the government's going to take care of you. You need to. I would say there's two types of people in this world. There's those that hear information like this and say, "Oh man, wow. Well, what should we do the rest of the day?" And then there's those that take action to change their circumstances to better serve their purposes, and that's what I encourage our listeners to do.
And you can take action right now. Have your calendar ready, 866-295-5146. Take action and give the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146, or go online to stonebridgeiwm.com. Zach, really quick, and Tim just mentioned 78 cents on the dollar. That's a 22% cut. What does that look like in terms of actual real dollars for people listening in 2032 or whenever things happen?
It's significant. I mean, 22% reduction, like Tim said, every $1,000 you're looking at a, $220 reduction in that. So I think average benefit right now is just over $2,000 a month. That's $400 to $500 a month reduction. And we know that a majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, whether that's in retirement or while in their working years. And we've talked about, lifestyle creep on the show a lot previously. And so if you've been living on your income for 5, 10, 15, 20 years now, and you're used to getting that monthly check and you're spending it, and then just suddenly $500 a month disappears, you're going to feel that. I mean, that's noticeable if you haven't come up with some type of plan and if you don't have some type of backstop to absorb that potential reduction.
Great reminders as we look at the changing landscape of retirement. I'm sure that this is a different picture for somebody who's retiring in the next few years or retiring in 10 years when Social Security, the math could be changing. To get a comprehensive strategy for your financial future, as Tim just outlined, look, there's a couple types of people, right? There's somebody that hears something and says, oh man, let's carry on my day. And that's interesting, but I'm going to carry on with my day. Or there's the people that actually do something and take action, and you can take action by giving Stonebridge a call at 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. Or always go online to stonebridgeiwm.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Kulhanek with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. The stock market isn't the only risk in retirement. One of the biggest and often overlooked is the tax bill tied to your 401k and IRA accounts. As tax laws change, so can the value of your income. A Roth conversion could help reduce that risk and give you more control, but timing and strategy matter. Want to see if a conversion fits your plan? Take the Roth conversion quiz today. It's free, it's quick, and may help you make smarter decisions. Scan the QR code or go to StoneBridgeRothQuiz.com to take the quiz now.
Thank you so much for listening to the Retirement Compass. I'm Mike Bauer alongside the advisory team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Jeff Gove, co-founder and financial advisor. Tim Kulhanek, co-founder and financial advisor. And Zach Vancas, financial advisor, all with the Stonebridge Wealth Systems team locations in Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. So convenient to wherever you are in the great state of Nebraska. And Jeff, I want to start things off with you and address a tough reality for farm operators and farm operations across Nebraska. The fact that one single health event can completely change everything. How does that affect ag families specifically more than maybe others?
Yeah, and it can have an impact in a lot of different ways. You know, if you think about the cost of a nursing home today, you know, it's like the cost goes up, but the care goes down. So I talked to some people that are paying $15,000 a month for a nursing home, and again, not getting great care in some cases, but just because they're understaffed, a lot of those places. But from a financial standpoint, I mean, if you have to spend, you know, $15,000 a month just for, you know, the rent and then for your care, it gets really, really expensive. And then you add, you know, if you're married, if both of you need care, you know, then it's getting, you know, really, really expensive. So that's one way. The other problem that we run into with a lot of farming families is, you know, sometimes we wait until the last minute to plan. So, you know, we wait until an event happens and then we start planning. You know, life insurance, it's a really, really good tool to transfer wealth. You know, I met with a few different families that are, you know, looking at having a high enough net worth that they're going to pay federal estate tax when they're gone. Life insurance is a really good tool to help alleviate some of that tax that you could be paying in the future. Has to be structured right. But if you wait until you're sick to start planning, you know, you have cancer or you're diabetic, or there's a lot of different things that could come up as you get older, or you're, you know, in your 80s and it gets really, really expensive. Life insurance is a great tool, but you have to qualify for it. Just like long-term care, if you want to transfer some of that risk, the nursing home risk, to the insurance company, you have to qualify for that. So it isn't something that you just sign up for and the insurance company's like, okay, we'll take you and cover you. You have to qualify. So you have to go through underwriting and, you know, get it put in place. But if you're already sick, it's not going to work. So that's where healthcare can be a major drag on your overall plan.
Protect your life's work from the unexpected. Go online, stonebridgelegacy.net. Stonebridge Wealth Systems has built a legacy and estate planning readiness quiz at stonebridgelegacy.net. All right, Zach, I'm sure that people avoid this topic. They feel like planning, and Jeff was just outlining, you know, that, okay, we do it at the last minute. Sometimes you wait for that event to happen, but I'm sure people feel like planning for illness or incapacity is giving up their independence. How do you reframe that for the ag families you work with?
Yeah, it's not that you're giving up independence. It's that you're planning ahead and you're guaranteeing the future that you want for your kids as best as possible. You know, I was working with a client yesterday, I believe we met, and they're in a situation where dad's got a farm and he's a farmer and he has 3 other siblings. And he was going to, you know, take dad's farm ground and keep farming it. So what he did is he bought it from his father and he's paying him over, you know, a payment schedule. And it's one of those, okay, well, we're kind of making the other siblings whole because I didn't get the farm ground free. I paid for it. However, to the health conversation, let's say dad ends up needing significant care and he burns through all that cash. Suddenly the other 3 siblings, they don't get anything. So, you know, my client walks away with the farm ground and the other siblings get nothing. Not because dad intended it to be unfair, but because, you know, happenstance, right? Things happen. a scenario, and what we're looking at, if we can, is like Jeff had talked about, it's the life insurance side of things. It's okay, well, let's look into a policy. That way I can guarantee my other 3 kids are going to get a payout. Okay, first kid gets land, other kids get a payout, everyone's happy, even if there could be some, unforeseen health circumstances. Now, a problem with this scenario, like Jeff had talked about, is, this individual is definitely not young, and there are some potential underlying health risks. So there's a qualification concern, which is why it's so important to plan ahead. You can't buy fire insurance once the house is already on fire, right? It's an unfortunate reality, but it's stuff you have to plan for ahead of time, not after it happens.
So many families make sure the farm is protected against the unpredictable when it comes to weather and seasonality and climate, but maybe it actually, maybe the call is coming from inside the house in terms of what you need to protect against from unpredictability. Give Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146, or check out their Legacy and Estate Planning Readiness Quiz at stonebridgelegacy.net.
Did you ever think your retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your traditional 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts are like a partnership with the IRS. Simply put, they want their tax dollars, and you have them. With our latest tax calculator, you can plug in your own numbers while sitting at home. To find out what your future tax liability could be, scan the QR code or go to stonebridgetaxbill.com.
Thank you so much for listening to the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, joined by the advisory team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems today. Tim Kulhanek, Zach Vancas, and Jeff Gove are joining us on the Retirement Compass Radio Show. They're all with Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and they're all over Nebraska, Kearney, Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. You can always reach them online at stonebridgeiwm.com and by phone at 866-295-5146. Jeff, we talk a lot on the show about the necessity of saving for retirement, and there's many people that check all the boxes. They put money away, max out the 401k, they build the nest egg. But what if there's a big tax bill waiting for you on the other side of retirement? Before we dive into it, I want to listen to a quick clip from best-selling financial author David McKnight, including books like The Power of Zero, talking about why today's tax rates are like a window that might be closing fast.
So when you put money into a 401k or an IRA, it's a bit like going into a business partnership with the IRS, and every year they get to vote on what percentage of your profits they get to keep. Not a great business partnership, if you ask me. So the idea is that you pay taxes at today's historically low tax rates, pay the piper while taxes are on sale, so that by the time taxes do potentially rise down the road, you've done all the heavy lifting, you can then take that money out tax-free. So that's really the philosophy.
So it sounds like he's saying that, and I'm paraphrasing / repeating what he said, but unknowingly entered a direct partnership with the IRS. What do you make of this perspective?
It's kind of true. When you're working and you go meet with the 401k guy, they say, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. So let's put this money in tax deferred. So what that means, you put the money in, you reduce your tax liability the day that you put it in or for that year. But it is deferred, meaning later. So you're going to pay the tax later, which may or may not be true. So he's right, when you look at the fact that government sets the tax rate. So, if you're in the 12% tax bracket today, and you look at national debt's going up, tax rates are probably going to have to go up. You deduct 12% today on, let's say you put in 10,000, that 10,000 grows to 50,000. By the time you retire, and then you got to take it out. But let's say the tax rate's 22% or 32% at that point. So now you've deferred into a higher tax bracket, which we see all the time. And it's not necessarily just your tax bracket, it's the tax impact. When you take money out of that 401k or IRA, you're going to pay tax on it, but it also can cause taxation on other sources of income, whether it be Social Security, long-term capital gains. There's a lot of different things that can happen with that. So when we look at the actual tax impact, it could be, a much higher tax rate than even exists today. There's some scenarios where you could pay in the 40% tax range when you look at the actual impact, even though the highest tax bracket's 37%. So those are all things you have to consider. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, again, were told you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. So just defer it and then take it out at a lower rate. Well, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So what he's talking about in that clip is let's get the money out of those accounts at a known tax rate. So if you're in the 12%, take it out at 12% and then pay the tax on it, and you'll never pay tax on it again.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful because you just and this is just an example, but you mentioned 12%. That's a lot different than the 40% that you mentioned just a few moments ago. And one thing I love you guys have done at Stonebridge Tax or StonebridgeTaxBill.com is you put together a tax tool calculator. So as we're talking about taxes specifically, a great resource online at StonebridgeTaxBill.com. Tim, as we heard David McKnight mention. He said that taxes are relatively low right now. Jeff just reinforced that. Why do some advisors view that as an opportunity?
Why do they view low taxes as an opportunity?
Yeah.
I don't know. Apparently they know how a calculator works, I suppose. I mean, what's crazy is, like, we joke about it, but a huge, like, I run into this all the time, a huge number of financial professionals don't. Like, they view low taxes today as a excuse to not pay taxes. They're like, well, let's take advantage of these low taxes by paying no taxes. The problem is with taxes, it's not an if, it's a when. That's the reality of it. Somebody's going to pay taxes on this. And if you think about the way that this actually works. So Zach and I were doing a estate workshop the other day, and we really stressed the fact that of all the things that people are worried about when it comes to estate planning, most of them aren't going to come true. Like people think that, they hear about estate tax. They're like, oh my gosh, 40% tax rate. Like, I got to do something to make sure I avoid that. Well, you'd like, if that affects you, then like you are doing tremendously well, because that affects like 0.1% of the U.S. population, because the unified credit, the gift estate tax lifetime exemption is $15 million in 2026. And because you have portability, right, and the marital deduction, really for a married couple, it's $30 million. And so it just doesn't affect that many people. Now, we have people that we work with that because they own a business or they have a bunch of land, that's something that we have to navigate, but it's very, very few, right? And so the reality is, when it comes to estate planning, your biggest concern shouldn't necessarily be, am I going to have to pay estate or inheritance tax? It should be, what about the income tax that myself or my heirs will pay? How much of my hard-earned dollars are actually going to go to the people and organizations and entities that I love and care about and that are meaningful to me? And how much is going to go to federal and state income tax? Because, it doesn't make headlines, but when the government passed the Secure Act in December of 2019, it radically redefined what wealth transfer meant for the majority of Americans. Because the majority of Americans, guys, where do they have the majority of their resources saved?
Retirement accounts.
Yeah, but what if you do a state workshop and you ask that question, what do a lot of people say?
The house.
The house. They say, "Oh, it's my house." Yeah. Okay. Well, how much is your house worth? Oh, $450,000. Okay. You got more than that in your retirement accounts? Well, yeah. Okay, so it's not your house. So the government knew where every penny was, because every year in the spring you get this form in the mail called a 5498. So Form 5498 just ratting you out. It's like the tattletale form. If you have it at Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard or wherever your money's held, like, they're sending a notice to the government, to the IRS, saying, hey, like, Zach's got like $10 in his IRA. Addie, because of her cookie company and the conglomerate that it is, has like probably $550,000 in her IRA. Okay, Addie Vancas. Okay, with her Addie Bardell cookies. Did she keep the name for the cookie company?
No, she changed it.
She changed that too. Okay, that's good. So, anyways, they know where every penny is. They know there's over like $40 trillion in retirement accounts, the vast majority being tax deferred, and so they made a decision. This is an intentional decision the government made to say, hey, we're not going to get it from these people because, they're pretty savvy. They've been doing this for a long time, and they vote, and we don't want to tick them off too much, right? But what if we just like do the frog in boiling water approach, make them feel nice and comfortable, and then when they're gone, we take it from their kids? The first baby boomers started turning 65 in 2011. The last baby boomers will turn 65 in 2029. Not many more years, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. 4 years, 3.5 more years of baby boomers. And then that generation, then the next generation turning 65 will be what, Gen X, I think is what comes next after the boomers, right? So my point is, that was 18 years. That was the silver tsunami. And now you're going to have more and more people. My dad was on the front end of baby boomers, 1946, okay? He turned 80 this year, right? So baby boomers are getting into that stage of life where more and more of them will pass away in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. And there's $100 trillion of wealth controlled by the baby boomer generation. $100 trillion is likely to pass from one generation to the next over the next 25 to 30 years. That's insane. That like, I can't even quantify that. There's like, how many years are in a trillion seconds? It's like 34,000. So a trillion is such a large number. The government knows where all those assets are for the most part, and they know like they have a game plan. They have a plan on how they're going to cleave off as much as they can and take it from your children because you won't be there to protect them. And so many people are out there just kind of winging it and like using a shotgun approach to how they're going to ensure that they get to keep more of their money. So having a strategy for dealing with taxes, not just the estate tax stuff that sounds really scary because the 40% rate, but how am I going to deal with the taxation of my retirement accounts and ensuring that it goes to a good purpose that I care about and not to, the Department of Revenue is really, really critical.
Tim mentioned they have a plan. That's why it's so important for you to have a plan. And if you want to give the team a call at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, you can do so at 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. Zach, really quickly here, when we talk about taxes are on sale now, or as David McKnight mentioned, historically low tax rates, what are some examples of ways that people and you guys at Stonebridge can help people take advantage now?
One of the big things that comes to mind is on the Roth conversion side. It's like McKnight said, okay, well, let's pay taxes today at a known historically low rate rather than tomorrow at what could be an astronomically higher rate, right? People, when we do these estate workshops, we do our taxes workshops, we always like to ask the audience, how do you guys feel about taxes right now? High, low, average? Like, where would you say they are? And the room always erupts with, their taxes are so high right now. Taxes are at the third lowest rate in U.S. history right now. They're not high. So right now is a great advantage of, okay, if you have this money in your tax deferred bucket and let's say your RMDs kick in and it's going to push you higher and higher into the 22, 24%, 32% bracket, what have you, but you're in the 12 today, just pay 12 today or 22 today to get in front of the potential spike down the road. And that's completely negating, okay, well, what about legislative risk? Because they could just raise the tax rates down the road as well. And if they do, obviously you're that much farther in front of it. So take it today, pay at the known low rate today rather than trusting it to chance down the road.
And one thing you guys have done at Stonebridge is put together a Roth readiness quiz. So if somebody's hearing what you're saying, Zach, and thinking, you know what, that sounds like a great option for me, go to StonebridgeRothQuiz.com. That's StonebridgeRothQuiz.com. And if you want to learn how to tax optimize your portfolio and create a plan to go up against the government's plan, call Stonebridge Wealth Systems, 866-295-5146. That's 866-295-5146. More Retirement Compass Radio Show next.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Gove with Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Are you taking too much risk with your retirement or not enough? Most people really aren't sure. That's why we created the Stonebridge Risk Quiz. In just a few minutes, it helps you discover your personal risk tolerance. Your score could reveal why your investments sometimes feel too aggressive or maybe too conservative. It's quick, simple, and eye-opening. Scan the QR code or visit StonebridgeRiskQuiz.com to see if your money matches your mindset.
This is the Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Mike Bauer, alongside the team at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We've got Jeff, Tim, and Zach in the house today, and they are located all over Nebraska, Kearney, Lincoln, Omaha, and Grand Island. And this is a financial radio show. But let's pull back the curtain a little bit on kind of how everything works. Let's pull it back and be completely honest with our listeners. I mean, we always are, but usually not in this way because Tim, most of our listeners have probably tuned into This Money Show or have heard another at some point in time and thought, sounds like an infomercial. Why does it work the way that we do? Why is the format built this way? For those that hear it's just a sales pitch, it's an infomercial, is that a fair reaction, Tim?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on then. No.
So here's the thing. Like, I think it's a fair criticism for a lot of different programs because, like, there's maybe some that you've heard before. There's like a lot of calls to action, like, well, if you want to know the truth about this, you can get the truth by calling 866-295-5146. Like, I think we run a pretty educational show here, to be honest with you. And we've got the radio program, we've got the TV program, and we got our in-person type of events that we do, right, in the community. Now, what I would tell people is if they're listening to this show and they're like, if they happen to have that thought, like, that's fine. We're here to help people who are looking for help. The thing that is, like, every company has to market itself some way. And we've just chosen to use hey, we're going to give you a lot of the information and knowledge that we've accumulated over the last 20 plus years. Like, this is my 16th year. This is Zach's second week, but he's getting pretty good. Jeff's been doing it for close to 20 years, 18, 19 years probably. My point is, like, we're not doing this show to be like, well, to find out, you have to call. Like, I'm willing to tell you as much as I know. The question that I think everybody has to ask themselves is what you're doing right now working? And if you have a financial professional in your life, if you have a financial advisor, are they sharing this type of information with you? Or is it more about financial product sales? Is it more about, hey, you go in and you find out, how your returns are. Like, I can send you a link and you can monitor your returns on your own. You don't need me to tell you the market's up. Like, you have a TV, you have a cell phone, you can see that on your own really easily. Our job, the job of financial advisor, if they're doing what they should be doing, in my opinion, is to look at more than just the stock market and instead look at what we call rules risk and legislative risk, and to look at how I make sure that I don't let little inefficiencies compound over time. Because when you let that happen, that's when all of a sudden it's like the financial termites that before you know it, you get later in life and there is a stress event on your retirement accounts or on your overall plan. Market goes down, you have a health event, family member dies, kid needs help, financially. And all of a sudden you don't have that solid foundation because you didn't plan from the beginning for things like taxes, healthcare, the impact that Medicare premiums and rising rates and things like that are going to have, impact to changes in Social Security. We're looking at that from a holistic approach. So, let me give you a quick example and then I'll let you kick it to the other guys. So the other day, a client called in. We had planned on doing Roth conversions this year because, as Zach said, Dave McKnight said, hey, instead of being the guy like, hey, great, I can take advantage of these low rates, and if my kids have to pay the taxes, too bad for them, it's still your money, right? So why not take advantage of these low rates? Because, like, you asked for an Ed slot earlier, Ed says, required minimum distributions? No, it should be required maximum distributions. Always pay at the lowest rate. That was a little exaggerated, right? But I gave it to you guys, okay? So Ed's point is all that matters is the rate. It's a myth that, like, oh, if I do a conversion now, that means less money in my account. So therefore, I'm going to end up behind. If I would have just let that money stay in there and grow, I'd had more compounding. No, the only thing that matters is the rate you pay in. That's it. I'm going to say it again. The only thing that matters is the rate that you pay at. So if you think about it, this guy, he was like, all right, I want to convert to the base of the second IRMA. IRMA stands for income-related monthly adjustment amount. We were going to do a $135,000 conversion, but he told me at their last meeting, he's like, would it be okay if I bought a camper? And I'm like, heck yeah, dude, buy a camper. Like, if you want to buy a camper. Like, you get one chance to retire. And, like, I don't know how long you're going to get to be able to do things. Like, I've got clients that have MS, Parkinson's, things that happen, right? Life's consistent inconsistencies. So I said, buy the camper, do it. You can afford it. It's going to be great. Do it. I hope you enjoy the heck out of it. He called yesterday. He's like, found it. I need $78,000, but I got to pay for the taxes and stuff. So I need $87,000. So what I did is I said, okay, if he needs $87,000, I wanted to convert $135,000, but I got to calculate the tax bill. I don't want him to have to pay. I want to meet the safe harbor for ensuring that he doesn't have to pay a late payment penalty or underpayment penalty or interest on underpayments for his quarterly tax bill. And I know there's a get out of jail free card if I have taxes withheld from the conversion itself and replace it using an indirect rollover. However, because this year, instead of just doing a conversion, we're going to send him money for the camper, I can withhold the total amount based off of the total tax bill he'll have for 2026. I can withhold the total amount he'll need to have withheld from this distribution. So I figured he's going to owe like $45,000 in taxes total for the year, including the conversion we're going to do. But I looked at his last pay stub because he retired January, and I know that he's already had withheld $17,000. So then I start doing the reverse solve. I'm like, okay, I need $47,000. He's had 17. I still need 30. He's got a pension that has another 3 that's withheld. I need 27. If I need 27 and I need to net 87, here's how much I need to take gross, withhold the tax for him to be able to not have a tax bill at the end of the year and to meet the safe harbor to not have an underpayment penalty or interest on the failure to pay or underpayment for the quarterly payments. When I get done, he'll be able to do the conversion in November for another $20,000, $30,000, whatever the math ends up being, and we'll be able to withhold 0 for tax because all the taxes have already been withheld. Now, I went over that fast and went over the vast majority of people's heads, and that's kind of by design because the point is that's the actual work it takes for a good financial advisor to do behind the scenes to make sure that you're avoiding those penalties because those are those financial termites that will eat away at your principal over time. And it's like, oh, well, if it's the same principle as like Dave Ramsey's like, oh, well, I think it's fine if you spend $9 on a coffee every day, if you enjoy it. Like, no, you probably shouldn't do that. Especially when you've got an espresso machine sitting on your kitchen counter at home. Like, what was the point of that? That you bought that so you could buy, have the same coffee at home for a fraction of the cost. It's the same principle when we're doing financial planning at Stonebridge. We're not looking just at, it looks like your mutual funds were up 8% this year. Pretty good. See you in 6 months. It's how can we make sure that we're keeping more money in your pocket, paying taxes intentionally, not by accident, so there's no surprises later on.
The show is always about empowering you to make informed decisions. If you want to test your current retirement preparedness, StonebridgeRetirement.net is a great resource. They have a quick retirement reality check quiz. And if you're looking for a straightforward, no-pressure conversation, and Tim can go over a whole bunch of numbers very quickly like that because he's done all the work behind the scenes, you can meet with the team in person in Omaha, Grand Island, Lincoln, or Kearney, which is where Jeff Gove is. And you can always give Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call, 866-295-5146. Jeff, I'm sure that you meet with people or encounter people. You're at the grocery store or something like that, and somebody says, "Hey, I've been listening to you guys for years. I like the show, but I've never called." And then they finally give you a call and they finally come in for a conversation. Why do you think so many people delay making that first call, knowing that they probably ultimately should and are missing out on valuable time with you?
Yeah, and there's probably excuse me. There's probably a lot of different reasons for that, but there's some people out there that they listen to the show, listen to what Tim just said, or they hear I should do Roth conversions. They're like, well, I can figure that out. I can do that. I'm going to go do a Roth conversion, and then maybe if you really listen to what Tim said, you understand that it's a little bit more complicated than I'm going to go do a Roth conversion. I'm not going to have taxes withheld, or I'm going to have 12% withheld. And then you go and you have a nice surprise when you go file your taxes. Probably a lot of reasons, but this is why we do the show. I want people to be able to avoid some of the issues that we see come through the door. I've told the story of the guy that said he came in on a Thursday, I'm retiring on Tuesday, I'm 62, I've already filed for Social Security, and that's not going to work for him, but he's already filed, so we had to undo it. If he would have waited a year, he can't be undone. He's stuck for the rest of his life. These are the types of things we want to educate the public. That's why we do the TV show, why we do workshops on all of these topics, because some of these could be catastrophic. Some of these errors, just by not knowing, could be very expensive or catastrophic when you're looking at your retirement as a whole. So there really isn't a reason to not call. I mean, it's complimentary, it's free. So yeah, call and get your questions answered.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a great example. Is that in terms of taking your Social Security, had he waited, he would have had a permanent decision, an unreversible thing that you were able to help him out with. I really appreciate the transparent look at how the industry works from you guys, and want to thank everybody who's listening for tuning in to the Retirement Compass radio show. The job of the program is to help you learn about your retirement, to build that retirement confidence and that retirement satisfaction that you deserve. And if you're ready to take the next step with an educational team you can trust, give Stonebridge Wealth Systems a call at 866-295-5146. That number again is 866-295-5146. You can always go online to stonebridgeiwm.com. Right there on the front page is a schedule a complimentary visit. Leave your checkbook at home. You're going to sit down and have a conversation with Jeff or Tim or Zach, a member of the Stonebridge Wealth Systems team, and figure out what your financial future looks like. They will help you with the Retirement Compass, find the right pathway forward. Again, it's stonebridgeiwm.com. On behalf of Tim Kulhanek and Jeff Gove, co-founders and financial advisors, and Zach Vancas, financial advisor, I'm Mike Bauer. We'll talk to you next week on the Retirement Compass radio show.